Hello, 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 good people. We are so excited to be here today for our chat for manifesting inclusion. Let us get us all in the right place, got us moved around today. But thank you so much for joining us here on the live stream. Before we get started, we're going to go over some house rules and then we're going to go over some introductions so that we can engage you all today. So, as you see, today we're going to be talking about HBCUs and how to create inclusive places within them. First things first, besides you being the realist, there is a couple buttons down at the bottom if you're able to see and or locate those. You will see a button that has a right hand or an arrow. That's the share button. We would appreciate you all sharing. Not only does that let other folks know that you're a part of this professional development community, but then also allow for them to learn all the amazing things that we are learning on this show. And we know our guests are going to give us all the gems. Second, you will see some reaction buttons at the bottom. So those might look like some hands or some hearts. If you're able to locate that during the show, please send our guests some love. They love to see that you're engaging and that you're a part of this conversation and you said something good. Last but not least, we ask that you engage with us in the chat. If there's a question that comes up or a thought that you have, not only how to support HBCU students, but anyone on this world, how to create a more inclusive environment, which is what we're trying to do, please drop them in the chat and we'll be sure to answer them during the show and or after the show. So now that we've gone through all of our house rules, let's hop into our show. So my name is Lee Miles. I use she and they pronouns, and I am one half of the Manifesting Inclusion co-founding team. I'm also the Associate Director of Inclusive Excellence at Wake Forest University, and I super love my job. So I'll pass it over to my co-founder and co-host, Dr. G.
Thank you so much. My name is Laura Gonzalez, and I am the other half of the Manifesting Inclusion team. For those of you who may not be following Manifesting Inclusion, we really hope that you will. And so please make sure to like us on LinkedIn to learn more about everything that we are doing, which includes these weekly speaker series, some live in-person presentations at conferences, and also a book project that's going to be coming out soon. So there's lots of great things that we do, but it's all with the larger purpose of bringing folks together to really talk about not only how do we think about inclusion, but how do we do it? How do we manifest this so that we can create a community like we're going to talk about today, thriving communities. So I would like to have our guests introduce themselves, and I don't remember who we're starting with first on the slides. It might be Tim Johnson. Hooray! If you wouldn't mind introducing yourself.
Yeah, hey everybody, my name is Timothy Johnson. By the way, Tim Johnson, he, him as pronouns. I'm a proud graduate of North Carolina Central University, go Eagle Pride, and then my graduate work at UNCW. And then you can read everything else on there on the slide. But really, I'm just happy to be in a space with a really good friend and colleague of mine, and just happy to be able to contribute. And so looking forward to today's conversation. Hopefully I say something that will impact you in some way, and vice versa. I will hear something that I can take with me and also be impacted as well. And so just excited to be here. Thanks, y'all.
Perfect. And now we'd like to invite Dr. Heath to introduce himself.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Roderick Heath, Assistant Vice Chancellor, Dean of Students here at Fayetteville State University. Also, alum of North Carolina Central University. So you have two Eagles here today, three Eagles on here. So we hope to horn in on some good information. Just my background is just in inclusion, student development. I always try to find spaces for all people to belong, and just so we can create and build these thriving communities. So I'm just happy to be here. I don't need to go through the bio. Just know that the people that's on the call today, we love to do the work, and that's it.
Awesome. So we're going to get kicked off with our first part of the show. And we simply ask for you all to think about this question. So actually start with Dr. Heath. What got you invested in this work? And take us a little bit back to your student affairs journey and how you got interested in inclusive spaces, specifically for young Black men.
Well, I think for me, growing up single parent home, I went to college a few times. I quit college. I was supposed to go I had a scholarship, and I dropped out of college because I was first gen, didn't really have the knowledge, right? and didn't have a ecosystem when I got there at Livingstone College. And then I dropped out for a few years, got in a few situations that could have changed my life trajectory as of today. And one day I just said, I want to try this college thing again. And when I got to North Carolina Central University, I had never seen Durham before in my life. And when I got there, I just saw this community of people moving, and I started seeing all these different groups on campus. And I was like, this is where I need to be right here, right? So I finally found out like what college really meant. And so for me, just seeing that and getting engaged on campus and finding my community, I call it your tribe. When I found my tribe, that really helped me hold each other accountable. Yeah, we all made mistakes. We did great things together, but we held each other accountable. And I knew when I went to the dining hall, I can call my tribe. So I didn't have to go in there by myself, right? And so once you find your tribe and you can get around the city and navigating into it, feels like home, that's when you really be successful. So for me, I worked in the city of Durham for a while, and I always had this niche. Once I really locked into college, I was like, I can do this college thing for the rest of my life. That's what I was saying. And so North Carolina Central gave me an opportunity to run the Men's Achievement Center. I started as a program coordinator, and all this time I was like, the retention rate was low. So I was like, if these young men find a pocket, find their own tribe, have a location on campus where it feels like family and they can hold each other accountable, that's how they can be successful. And so that's why the Men's Achievement Center has been successful at North Carolina Central University, because it becomes a hub, it becomes a home, it becomes a brotherhood, and you feel safe and comfortable in that space. And lastly, I'll say this, with me being here at Fayetteville State University, I created that same ecosystem here, all right? And so at HBCUs, if we can find, everybody belongs somewhere. If we can create these spaces on campus where everybody feels like they belong, that's what increases the retention rate. That's what increases the students to go to class, and everything else fall in place. These students are academically great anyway, but most of the time it's just like, I don't belong. But once I find somewhere where I belong, you'll see them thriving. You'll see students that you never thought could do it. Like, I found my people. I'm good. I got my crew. You know how the young people say, I got my crew. I'm good to go. So I'll say that's what got me to student affairs, like just loving the fact that I can change someone's life by being engaged and teaching them, helping them roadmap their life. So that's why I'm in student affairs.
I love that, Dr. Heath. What I really heard was not only do you see the problems that exist sometimes, but then we're also able to be a solution for that, right? And often that comes in community, which we always love. So we'll go over to you, Tim. So tell us a little bit about you, how you got involved, and how you went from the great NCCU to where you are today.
Yeah. It's gonna sound kind of repetitive to what the great doctor said, but I mean it's kind of the same. I'm a first generation college student as well, and so I got to Durham. My mom was like, "Are you sure you want to be here? Because I don't know." And I was like, "We're gonna figure it out, Mom. We're gonna figure it out." And I remember they had this program. It's it's spoken week program. Oh, what is it called? Where all the orgs are in the gym. It's like a big showcase. Is what happens.
Organizational affair, probably. Organizational affairs.
It's a name. It's where they all do it in the gym. Like the band comes, the cheerleader comes. Oh, it's a name. I'm gonna figure it out in a second. But I went to this program, and I marched in high school, and the band was there. And I had a friend of mine who was in the band. He's like, "Listen, just come to the field after this is done, and we'll get you plugged in." And I was like, "Okay, like I'll see." I didn't have any desire to march in college. Get out there, and the guy named Ronnie was like, "Hey, listen, do you play?" I was like, "Yeah, I played cymbals and trumpet, but I really want to do drumline." He was like, "Well, drumline already had tryouts, but like, come play a horn tomorrow." Cool. 3 years later, I have now marched in the band for 3 years. I caught my first flight because of the band, going to Pasadena, California to march at the 2011 Rose Bowl. I've been to Hannibal, the band. I mean, I've done all these great things because of like this opportunity that then lended so many other things that happened at NCCU. And like you said, when you find that community, that niche of people, they just understand you, they get it. I see quotes all the time that say, "Man, your college friends were some of your most lifelong friends." That is very true. But in that space, they became more than friends. Like they were aunties, uncles, cousins, unofficial doctors, lawyers. Like they were all the things that I needed at that time to kind of figure out like how to do life as a first gen college student, because we're trying to figure out like how do we survive in this space. And what was so great about it was 4 years I did not have to defend my Blackness. I got to explore it. And that's a huge thing for me when I think about how we create these spaces is giving people the opportunity to just explore who they are. And for me, I thought Blackness had like kind of one look, and then you get into a classroom where your professors look like you. This is gonna sound really bad on LinkedIn, but like your neighborhood street pharmacist is a great mathematician, right? You have people who were doing hair out of their residence halls and then became whole beauticians and business owners, right? But because you had a space to just practice that craft, I don't know, man. I get so excited about just what those spaces can bring, and it's so harmonious in how we do it. And people always ask, what's the magic? I'm like, it's not really magic. It's just like the risk of being authentically yourself, right? And finding the tribe that accepts that part of who you are. And so that's what landed me into going to student affairs. Because then like, by that time I joined our student activities board, got to work on the concert board. And that's when I really just fell in love with event planning and experiences. And so for me, being able to create not just events, but experiences that people can walk away with something just became a huge fashion for me and how we do this work. And then beyond that, when I recognized that I no longer needed to be just the person that could talk about why MLK had a dream. Like my voice didn't just matter in February, it mattered all the time. But in order for me to get to a place where I'm comfortable, I mean, I have to also do the work. So I can't just depend on being Black as my experience of diversity. Like I need to find other pockets, explore that, and be comfortable within that. And NCCU provide me that experience through so many avenues. And so hopefully we'll get a chance to explore those as we go through the conversation. But love it. I'm with you, Dr. Heath, man. That's an amazing place, man.
I just want to take a second and acknowledge this really quickly. So DeMarcus in the chat said ecosystems are critical. I think that was to Dr. Heath's point. They should be intentional and not accidental or consequential. And also said, wow, 4 years not to defend my Blackness. Profound. Thank y'all so much. Dr. Heath, did you have something else before we pass it over to Dr. G?
I also want to say another piece that I left out, coming from a small rural town, and I'm meeting people from New York, LA. I'm learning all different ways of life. Like the way we did it this way is not the only way it can be done, right? And so you learn them lessons like, was I doing it wrong? So I tell students all the time when you get to college, to be inclusive, we got to let everybody unpack their suitcase and tell them, grandma gave you that. That might not work, but keep that part of what she taught you. Get rid of those old habits within your family, those non-cognitive spaces. That's what I really love to look at. Those lessons, the family that we come from often. You come from your family, that non-cognitive stuff, right? And so how do you take the good and leave the bad out? Because we all have things in our family that we're good at and some things we do bad at. And so I think that's a part of it, being able to accept that person who they are when they come and then help them find their way. So
Thank you for adding that. I appreciate the way that you both introduced the topic and really, to DeMarcus's point, helped us think about, the climate and the spaces that we create on a campus. So I'd like to just go a little bit further with that and ask you all to think with us about, there's a variety of folks who come to HBCUs. And so, gender might be a salient way that people are looking for their space or their tribe or their little, corner of campus. It might have to do with being first gen. It might have to do with, finances in your family background. It could have to do with, having a visible or invisible disability. There's so many ways that our intersectional identities are showing up. And so I wonder if either of you could talk a little bit about that ecosystem point that DeMarcus made and how you've seen HBCUs make, spaces within for the intersectional identities that are present on campus. And it doesn't matter to me who would like to start with that one.
I'll say we got to be honest here, right? We're in a higher ed space. HBCUs for a while, it was an adjustment because a lot of these institutions were started through the church or the beliefs of of how they were started, how the founders, the mottos, and everything. So I think HBCUs really had to adjust and realize that we're not in the 50s, the 60s, the 19 whatever your university was established, and we're in a new generation of student, right? And so if we want to grow and expand, we have to learn from these students. We have to adjust to what their needs are, not what I needed in 2003 when I was in college. So for me, I did a lot of research, surveying the students. What do you need? What's going to make you better? And I think when universities and faculty and staff stay trained, seeing what the new trends are, seeing what the data is showing, that's how you continue to grow in your space and be a great in these spaces, because you can become a dinosaur if you're not unwilling to learn. And these students want to be taught with, not taught at, right? So we taught this population to be strong, speak your mind. And when they speak it, we be like, oh, but no, let's listen to them. And they're going to tell us what they need. I call it give and take. I tell my students, if you give me what I need, I'm going to give y'all what y'all need, right? We're programming. We're going to win this thing together. And when I first started out, I was like, I want it my way. And you start seeing students start marching with their feet. You have empty rooms because you ain't really adjust to the environment. So for me, I think is that being intentional in everything you do, always have the student involved in the planning. Like I said, if you're 10, 15 years older than that population, what you consider as fun or engaging might not be the same thing that they're into now. So that's what I do. I go in the dining halls. I sit with random students. How are you doing? What do you need? And that's what's really been helping me be successful on our campus here, just being engaged and kind of getting in the weeds with the students.
Yeah, you hit it right on the head. If you're not where they are, you're going to miss what they need, right? I think that's really simple. I think the context around our institutions and how some of them we're still growing, right? We're still having to adapt and relate to what's currently happening, and sometimes I hate to say it, but we turn a blind eye if it doesn't fit the mode of our brick and mortar of institutions, right? And then as new professionals or progressive professionals, we come in, we're like, but have you thought about this? And it's like, whoa, we don't do that. That's not what we do here, right? And that's hard because on one end, I really want to make a space as inclusive, as inviting as possible. I'm also still a brand of the institution. I'm an extension of the institution. And let's just call it what it is. My paycheck depends on me making sure I follow the policies and procedures of the institution, right? I still have a livelihood I want to maintain outside from here. What's also great is though, it's like how we teach students how to advocate for themselves is just as important as making sure we are following policies and procedures of the institution. And so anytime I've had a chance to work with SGAs or student activities boards or any group that holds some type of power or privilege on a campus, I was talking about like how are you using this not just for self-gain, but the betterment of all of your constituents, right? Your peers. Don't just run to be the 105th SGA president because it's got a good ring to it. What are you doing? And recognize that the work that you're putting in right now, you probably will not see the end product of it, right? You're planting a seed, or you're watering the garden, or you're pulling up the weeds of work that may have come before you, because that's just as important as reaping the benefits of, things that come when you come into school. I mean, when I went to NTCU, the biggest thing my freshman year I heard was, I can't believe these first year students got this brand new calf. Meanwhile, I just was like, hey, this is dope. Central got money, right? But I didn't recognize at that time, as a first gen 18-year-old, that there was a lot of work that took to get that new facility, right? And so I've always been a person of, if something new comes to your campus, be happy you got it. Because there are some schools that are still fighting for the chance just to have adequate space to teach classes, right? And now you have college campuses that have more amenities than theme parks sometimes, right? And so I think to Dr. Heath's point, it's also about this investment of making sure that when it's my time, that the right person can come and fill the seat, and not just fill it, but create more opportunities, right? But I can't do that if there's not a community established that's going to support you while you're there. The work that we do, it's hard because if you're alone in doing it, it becomes very heavy very quickly. Right. But if you can find somebody else on campus to kind of share that weight with, or if you have a good connection in one institution versus another, and I'm gonna shout him out. I have been seeing the work that he's been doing. If you're not following this man, shameless plug, please follow him. I've been following him, my boy Jalen. I got two other friends that they are killing it in that men's space of creating like that healthy community and not just having the be tough conversations. No, here's what it means to be soft. Here's what it means to show up. Here's what it means to own your identities and put them at the forefront, because if I don't know who you are, I can't help the center of who you are. Right. And so for me, and thinking about that, I'm going, okay, what is my role in that? When I see that young man, embrace him, right, and to do the work. And so not to go on a soapbox or get off tangent, but just again, those spaces and those ecosystems are vastly important. If you don't have a plan to pull those bad weeds out, start there.
I want to add to, like you said, for me, when I was doing this work, and I still been doing it, it was a time that it got lonely because, out here I was as a Black man trying to show these Black men how to beat these stereotypes that the world was putting out there. And people thought I was this chauvinistic guy. And I'm like, that's okay. I just want to find a place for these young men to feel, to be seen. It's not that they're not better than anybody. So, and then I got to the point where it's like, I can't fight for this. I know where my heart at. I talk to every student that come through this space, and we created more programming for, for other students. But it was a time I was lonely because I said, I'm seen as the Black guy that's trying to help all the Black men. But I was like, no, they put me here on a mission. I believe in whatever you believe in. I was like, this is hard work. And I was on a mission, and that's the mission I've been on for the last 20 years, is that if I can help these young men, they can go in other rooms and be inclusive and help other people, right? Because they're gonna show up. I don't talk to him, or that person is like this. No, if I teach them how to be a man, how to accept everybody, I'm still doing the work. It might not look like you want it to look, but if I'm showing them, then the lineage is going to continue on. So that's kind of where it was for me for a while. But now I work with everybody. I don't care. The work is the work. And if you're not ready for it, I'm sorry. I'm going to continue doing it. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I want to take some time and kind of dig into that also, having an HBCU experience, right? So often what I noticed, just for context, I'm from Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Then I went to Durham, North Carolina, which is a similar city. In these big cities, we have kind of a 50-50 split of Black folks and white folks. At the same time, due to politics, diversity, unfortunately. So I show up on this campus, and the very first thing that happens on a lot of HBCU campuses, outside of the convocations and the orientations and the welcome week, is someone calling you their mentee, right? There's this huge thing where other Black women on day 2 said, oh no, we got to get you together. And there's such a big community, from asking me, did I have dress attire because I don't need to go to convocation like this, to, oh, are you eating down there at Pizza Hut again? Because the freshman 20 is real, right? And there was such I call it like a soul holding versus a hand holding that happened. There was an exchange of greatness with women. But can you all talk a little bit about how do we take that community feel and implement it at non-HBCU campuses? And also, how do we take that feeling and even deepen it at HBCU campuses? So does it look like the Male Achievement Program? Does it look like SGA or SAB? What does that look like? And we'll start with Tim and then go over to Dr. Heath.
Man, that's a big question. I'm not gonna hold you. That's a big one. And I don't know, based on time, we won't have time to really unpack it, but I'll give some surface level. So I've had opportunity to work at both spaces, so HBCU and PWI. And so both have taught me a lot about just who I am as a person and professional in the field. I think when you look at how to recreate those spaces in PWI, we have to realize that that space is not an HBCU space. Like, that's the one thing that I see a lot, is that they really want to create this experience. I'm like, you can't recreate an experience when that's culture, right? Like, HBCU is culture. It's hundreds of years that took to get that place to what you are now seeing on social media, but like, it was there when Instagram didn't exist. Like, that was still happening, right? And so understanding that you have to find what works best in your area, right? If you're a rural institution in, let's say Cullowhee, North Carolina, for anybody who maybe know where that is, that's really in the middle of nowhere, no man's land, right? And so if you're there, creating a Black experience or having that mentor, like you said, that soul holding experience, that's where a lot more work based on who your clientele is. So I think hiring intentional personnel is really important. And understanding that requires you to ask the right questions in the interview process. I think asking people what's your favorite leadership theory is great. Or like, what's your favorite theory you use in your program or whatever else. But beyond that, okay, how do you apply that to your everyday life? Right? That's the question that I want to know. When it takes time for you to show up authentically at work, what do you need to do that? Because in some spaces, my Blackness is not taken at its full value. Right? Unfortunately, I have to code switch or maybe even reduce that a little bit just to make sure that I can survive in that space. And if the staff does not feel safe, it is really hard to make a student feel safe. Because I don't know about you all, but my students know if I'm having an off day. They just know, We've created that relationship and that bonding experience. They just kind of like, oh, Mr. Johnson, today ain't the day. Leave him alone. He got his collar shirt and stripes. We're gonna let him do what he does. I think on the flip side of that, in HBCU spaces, because we have culture, we have to be okay and also having uncomfortable conversations, right? And understanding that that may look like from peer to peer, peer to professional, professional to professional. Like having uncomfortable conversations is important because once you leave this sacred ground, there is still a world out there you have to learn to exist upon and continue to find these small pockets of communities, right? And so one of the things that a really good friend of mine used to tell me was, get you a board of trustees for your life. And I was like, oh. She's like, yeah, you need people who are not just yes people. You need people who are there to help you professionally, help you personally, help you socially, who are there to help you grow in all facets of life. And you should always know who to go to based upon what period of life you are in and what you are needing. And so I think if we can do that in those spaces and say like, hey, these aren't just your friends that you have in this collegiate experience. They're going to be with you for life because of the experiences you share. Figure out what role they play, because the company that you keep is a reflection of who you are, right? Um, so yeah, that probably like my quick version of what that looks like.
I would say, and I tell when I do trainings with faculty and staff, and I say, you know, whatever your title is, whatever your doctor, lawyer, whatever that is, go find yourself on this campus. Meaning there's students that look just like you. Some of you were the guy that or the young lady that went to the club on Thursday night and had a good time. So now that we're doctors such and such, can we now we didn't turn the blinders off and forgot that we were once a young undergraduate student. And I tell faculty and staff, go to the program and go see what the students want. You cannot come on campus and only teach and then go home and expect to come into a classroom and the students understand you. You don't even understand the students, right? I tell people all the time, a lot of these students have had tablets and techniques in their hands since they were born, right? So now when you're in class, you can't be the faculty or staff and say, I don't want to touch that technology. Get a Mentimeter, take the phone and let them be on their phone. But now you can see what they're doing in class. Like you really have to buy into now. And that's the only way we're going to ever continue to be inclusive. If you can't go into what's going on now and try to understand why he or she is like that, why this young lady has purple hair, I'll walk up to you and tell me why your hair purple. And that might be a whole conversation. When I was in school, this kept me, I was the only child. And so I had to express myself. And you learned a whole lot about that student. So now when I see her, I say, hey, young lady, I forgot your name, but I love your hair. I make her feel like somebody saw me. They noticed me. And not always me ask her a question. Not, she can't be in the picture. She has purple hair. Come on, man. This is not. I just say it. If you can't be a dinosaur in this work. And last I say, you got to know your cultural competencies. Like you have to know things about everybody's culture. Do your research. Everybody comes from different regions of the world. When I was in grad school, my dissertation was on non-cognitive variables. Right. When I learned about non-cognitive work, I learned about myself. I learned why my grandmother was the way she was, because where she came from, this is how they was raised. This is how she did things. And that's why I'm doing things. So when I looked at my roommate, his dad was military. So he would get up every morning, make the bed. And I wasn't like that. So I'm like, but I learned. He learned from me and I learned from him. And so it's like, that's the only way we're going to be inclusive. We got to learn. And actually, I'll say this, when I worked at PWI, like through internships, and I never really worked full-time at a PWI, but I saw the difference at a PWI was that it felt safe. Everybody was on the go. They would move. And when we got to HBCU, we were more conservative and a little bit more inclusive. We were scared to step out of line sometime, but like you said, it pays the bills. And when I went to PWI, they would just go do things. I'm like, we got to get some of that culture over here and understand that if we want to grow, we can't be scared. We got to just get out and do it. And so that's the difference that I see at PWIs and HBCUs. We're conservative in certain areas that are holding us back. And on the flip side, we're more in tune to what our students are doing. So we build an ecosystem as well. So I think if we could take from both and add them together, more campus. I don't think just because you have a Black student center, that means everybody's included. I mean, that's just a building. Really, it makes you stand out because we're like, oh, all the Black students go to that one room, right? And all the Hispanic students. So what I'm saying is, I'm agreeing with the Black student name, but I'm like, just make it a space where we know that people go here. When you come here, you're gonna get some knowledge. You're gonna meet new people. It's a cultural experience. So that's my take, if I answered your question.
Everything you're saying, both of you, thank you. Everything you're saying is really resonating with our audience. And so I just want to take a second to pull some of their comments and quotes in. Angel Oliver shared that community is the difference between a student just attending college and a student having an impactful and fruitful college experience that will move them into a new phase. So I think of what Dr. Heath just said about like taking a moment to speak with the person with the purple hair to let them know, like, it's not that you're just walking through this campus. It's that we have seen you and that we've welcomed you into the community, and that student now can feel, a sense of safety and belonging as they continue on. We also had a question, I think more for your roles as staff members or leaders. Do you feel you can still explore your Blackness at the current HBCU you work at while maintaining professionalism? And is there an issue if you feel like you forget to code switch when talking to higher ups if they share the same race as you? So I don't know if either one of you want to speak to that a little bit.
I want to take on this for a second. So for me, my degree has a little dust on it, right? My grandmother didn't finish high school. My grandfather didn't finish high school, or my mom. So every once in a while, there will be a slang word that may come out, but that doesn't negate my knowledge of what I do and how I do it. So I'm not going to be the perfect guy on the pedestal all the time. I can't be that, and I'm okay with that because I know that I'm authentic, and when I'm speaking, it matters and it has truth with it. I feel like when I go in rooms, there's a time and place, yes, depending on what the topic is. But if it slips out, we all have our moments. Like next weekend is our homecoming. And then when I used to go to homecoming, I used to tell students, I graduated from here too. So when you see me this weekend, I'm not Dr. Heath. I'm Rod this weekend, right? And I'm going to still give you a pound. You ain't seen me, I ain't seen you. Look, I'm still human. I'm still loving my experience as well. So I think, and the students respect that. Because that's Rod this weekend. And then Monday we get back on the same accord, Dr. Heath. So I gave him that moment to let him know I'm human. I still have fun outside of this. I don't need to take pictures. We're not going to be on social media. See you later. See you Monday. Be safe. Have a good homecoming. And that's how I carry it.
Hey, man, spot on. I mean, that's what it is. My students know there's Mr. Johnson, Mr. Timmy at work. My friends at Central, there's Tim, there's TJ. And that's just is what it is. I think when you think about looking at higher ups in that conversation, like when I'm talking, in my role, talking to a VP or whatever else in this space, typically it's just making sure that the language is there, right? Like I'm with you. A slang word may come out or two. I'm from Baltimore, Maryland, by way of Charlotte, North Carolina, now Durham. So like there's a lot of things that I have taken over the years that make up who Tim Johnson is. So yes, those things may come out, but it doesn't negate the fact that I still can't do this work. And I think what's also really important that, especially if you're really loving what you do, understanding like I need a point of connection for my current clientele, which is the students that I'm serving right now. So that relatability factor is really important for their development. They want somebody who they can trust to have authentic and real conversations with. And then my hope is that my higher ups want to hear those experiences that I'm, being told or seeing with my own eyes and apply that and how we make sure the institution continues to move forward. Like that's vastly important to how we succeed. The last thing that I would definitely say is, at the end of the day, my journey of Blackness is it's a continuum. There are moments where let me see what analogy that I can give that might be relatable. There are moments where I'm Michael Jackson / City Girls. And then there are moments where I am Taylor Swift by way of disclosure. Like it just depends on what I'm needing in that moment. And then right in the middle is a good Kurt Franklin and Yolanda Adams, because I need to be centered based upon what my faith looks like at that time. All those things make up who I am. And I think being able to have that shared experience in an HBCU space professionally while watching students learn about themselves, it's really hard to put that all into words, but it is an experience.
I want to add to it that one more piece. Like before I got on here, I did a tour with a Thurgood Marshall High School from Washington D.C. And one of the young men, he was lost about college, but every third word was a curse word, and he was from one of the rougher areas, And the lady was like, "He's cursing so much." I said, I don't even hear that. I hear a young man that's inquisitive about coming to college right now. We'll get the cuss words out, his lingo sooner or later. But I'm like, the fact that he's in question, he want to go sit in the classroom to see if he said, find me. He said, all of this is good walking around, I want to go sit in the classroom and see what a college class looks like. And I found him one. And just so happened, the professor I found, she's also from Maryland, D.C. She said, so see how it connected out? If I'd have looked at him about his curse words, I probably never took him to the class. Like, no, he ain't ready for that. But now he was intrigued, and we took him to the dining hall. He was all over the place. I was like, uh-oh, I think I might have got me one, just because I didn't judge him on the environment that he's coming from. When he get here, I clean him up a little bit, and he'll be all right. You see what I'm saying? That's what exclusiveness is. Bringing in who you are. We're going to get the cursing out. But right now, I just want you to enjoy this moment, because you never know what could happen. So, yeah.
The reality is I can't remember what the exact statistic is, but I think it's somewhere between 30 and 60%. I know that's big, but I will find it and put it in the notes. But about half of the folks that go on to get their doctorate degree or an advanced degree come from an HBCU. That's Black folks. So if you think about the size of HBCUs, right? It used to be closer to 69, but that was when I was in grad school in 2013. At Indiana University. So, a part of that I will mention to this code switching is when I was at my HBCU, I felt that I got this inclusive conversation of, though you can talk like that here, when you get over there, that's not going to work anymore. And people took the time to do the education, and education is a form of inclusion. However, when I was at my Indiana University, I love that university. It was a fear-based education approach. If I did not learn how to code switch, I would no longer have access. So there was like this cutoff versus at an HBCU, yo, these are the opportunities, but get in line. Two different mentalities. And I think also that comes with knowing power dynamics with other people, or thinking about my queer identity, my Black identity, the intersection of coming from a household where my mom was a widow identity. I'm a Delta. We didn't always think about these things at PWIs in the same way. I don't know if it's the blanket of, well, most people are Black or African American identifying here, but there was this sense that you were always an and. So you were Black and Puerto Rican, right? You were Black and a first generation college student. But for some reason, at a lot of other universities, it's just you're Black, you're done. We've served your student needs. So, in our last couple of moments here, can you all talk about maybe some of those intersecting identities, whether it's being a man, whether it's being super smart and you're performing beyond your class capacity? What are some of those intersections that people wouldn't think existed at an HBCU, but they really do make the difference?
Tim, I'll let you go.
I mean, there's Lee, you hit on a lot of them. I think one of the things that I see a lot, especially where I work, is you have students who are Black and coming from low economic backgrounds, right? So that's a whole identity in itself, like being low economic from an area that does not have a whole lot of resources, right? And that weighs a lot, right? So my students come in first day. I mean, I have first year students come in, hey dog, I need a job. Like I gotta survive, right? The meal plan is great, that's cool. I need some money in my pocket. You hiring, right? And so like what the building that, so I'm the director of the student center here at Claflin University, and I employ about 35 students. I kid you not, I got a list on my desk about 60 names of students who are trying to get into my building because they need to work, right, for survival. First generation who are parenting the parent, and that is really important. There are a lot of students who are going through this experience for the first time, and parents have no idea what it takes to truly be immersive in the collegiate experience, from financial aid literacy, understanding course schedule and selection, what it means to be involved in student organizations, internships, studying abroad. Like it's vast. That first generation is not just, I'm the first one to make it. No, you were the first one to also have to educate back about what this experience really means. In that identity, you have a lot of students who are Black and LGBTQIA. And if you're a school like mine, who is in the Bible Belt, that is a hard conversation to have, right? Because that's just not something that has grown up in the sphere of Blackness, right? And so when you have students like that who are trying to explore what that means, they don't even know what part of that they are. They just know, I think I'm in this, but I don't really know what that means. So now you have to do some exploration work and figure out what that means. And then understanding the terminology is also hard, right? It's not necessarily an identity, but I think it's important to just recognize the acceptance of names, right? I'm Black and my name is not it's not a Tim Johnson, right? It's not easy. It's not easy, air quotes, to pronounce, but it's an identity, and that name is tied to something that you may or may not know anything about, but it is important that you get it right, right, in those spaces, and what that really means, and how they provide within it. And then I think the last one I would say too is Black and non-Christian. You have a lot of students who are Muslim, atheists, um, and things like that. And so, like, how do you support those students if your own religious views maybe don't align, right? And so, I would say those are some of the ones that, just off the top of the head, I think are really important to consider. But all of them make up who they are, and then you can put all those together. And you have a student who is first gen non-Christian, who's part of LGBTQIA and low economic, and then that's a lot that they're juggling in their first 2 weeks of classes, right? So, yeah.
Well, I'll say for me, and I'm we candid. I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna break this down to you. So when we look at it from a male's point of view, and on my side, I was just reading an article about the shame, right? The shame of being first gen, the shame of not having quarters to wash your clothes, the shame, right? And an HBCU, like I said, if you have that ecosystem, you have those friends. It's like, it's all right. You need some money, man. I got you. But if you don't find that space, your clothing, right? I've known students who dropped out of school because they couldn't consistently wash clothes. Goes back to what Tim was saying about needing a job. And so the imposter syndrome comes in. And so when I grew up, grew up a UNC fan, right? Because I didn't like Duke because I thought it was privilege, it was money. And then I had a friend who played football there, and I started meeting guys who played football. Their parents were from some of the same places. And I was like, whoa, so y'all are in here too, right? So it made me look at it a totally different way, because I was like, they don't have the issues that I have. They don't have to worry about washing clothes. And I met students who were going through the same thing. And I said, see, that's my implicit biases right there, not knowing that people need help no matter where you're at. There's a level on every level that's low, right? And so for me, going to Central, it made me not be ashamed of who I was. It's like, this is my family. I'm not the only one that's broke this weekend. Hey man, you got some noodles? I have some noodles. That's what he gave me some noodles. That's how I met my best friend in college. I was hungry, didn't have no money. See, when I went to college, you had to get the money mailed to you. We didn't have cash out where it was instant. So grandma sent me money on Friday. I might not get it to Tuesday. So what I got to be inclusive and meet people to maintain from Friday to Tuesday. What I'm gonna do? I got to survive somewhere. So that what made me be inclusive and meet new people and it oodles and noodles. So last I'll say this: the HBCU culture for me, it's a beautiful place. Is it perfect? No. Is it getting better? Yes. All campuses have the niches. Some do well in other places. The PWI is perfect? No. But I think if we're gonna say like we're in the UNC system, right? I say if we're in the system, nobody in your system can be lacking. A system is something that keeps going and everybody wins. And so I don't think we're in a system. I think we're in a conglomerate, and some is taking care of more than the others. But if we're gonna call ourselves a system, everybody should be winning at the same pace. So that's when we're gonna talk. That's inclusive on another level. But I digress there. But yeah, so that's how I look at it. Yeah, hopefully that answers your question.
I appreciate those thoughts. And I know that with today being the first day of early voting in North Carolina, I appreciate your reflections on the system and the politics that, surround our campuses and create, inequalities that we would like to see addressed. So that's my little soapbox moment. I really want to appreciate folks who have been in our audience with us today. We've had so much, just comments, conversation, applause for the points that people are making, really resonating. So I just want to appreciate DeMarcus, Ebony, Ashlyn. I would like to thank you all for being here today. We also had Kalia and Angel. So just really appreciate everyone for the active chat community. And certainly thanks to our guests for sharing their wisdom and their personhood with us. I think you've provided so many great examples of not only ways to think about inclusion, but things that we can physically do on campuses. So thank you very much.
On top of that, we just want to take a moment, as we know that you all have had comments. We ask that y'all please follow us at Manifesting Inclusion. And also, please send Dr. G and I a message if you would like to come up here and share your wisdom, just like Dr. Heath and Tim did today. I met Dr. Heath, I don't know, it was a mini a moon ago, and it's so cool. And Tim, I think I met you in what, 2012, 2011?
2011, yeah.
2011, we were summer conference supervisors together. I forgot that. And so we love community here at Manifesting Inclusion. And a part of that manifesting is thinking about who can we include in these conversations. But we've had a lot of things happen that have not been so great. And so we want to take a moment between war, between famine, between the hurricane. North Carolina is a huge place that's been recently impacted by some of those events. And so we want to observe a moment of silence and reflection together, and then we'll close out the show, good people. Thank you all so much. So, if you enjoyed this conversation today, we simply ask that you follow us at Manifesting Inclusion, and we'll give our panelists a second. But if you can, before you leave out, just say thank you. Thank you for being here. Drop a comment. We got so many thank yous from Ebony and Angel and Jarek and Demarcus. We appreciate that. So, leave that in the chat. But what we would also like to do is we'll start with Tim. Where can we find you, and how can we connect with you? And then we'll go over to Dr. Heath.
Yeah, LinkedIn. So feel free to please follow me there. Instagram. I don't post a lot, but I do post on my story, at least like quotes and like that. You can follow me there. It's at it's ITS underscore just Tim JUSTIM. Facebook, I'm never there. I'm not gonna hold you. I'm not gonna tell you Facebook because that would be pointless. But then email is just TI Johnson@Claflin. Would love to connect, come to your campus, let's do some work together. And remember, you're not alone. I'm here to help you and be supportive and vice versa. And just thank y'all for being here.
All right, for me, Instagram, LinkedIn, most of my stuff is under my name, Roderick Heath. If you Google it, most of my stuff come up. Unlike Tim, I was the first family of Facebook, so I still use my Facebook faithfully. You know, I was at 05 when it came in, so I'm still a trusted employee through Facebook now. But I still use it. But yeah, if you LinkedIn, I do a lot. I post a lot on LinkedIn and my Facebook and my Instagram. I post mostly work stuff, you know, stuff that I want to do. And I just post I try to post inspiration and throw out ideas to get somebody motivated on their campus. Like, I never looked at it like that. Let me try this on my campus or revise it, you know, because the work doesn't belong to me. It belongs to us. And so the work will get done if we all help each other out.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for joining us today. If you would like to know more, please send us an email at manifestinginclusion@gmail.com or send us a message over on our business page. Again, thank you so much for joining today. And we can't wait to see you again next week, where we'll be talking about educational equity actually over the next 2 weeks before we dive into November and thinking about victims and how to support that population. So thank you all, and see you again next week, 1 p.m. right here on LinkedIn. Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.